Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we will be reviewing the Sheka honey processed Ethiopia from Fuglen Coffee Roasters. And there's the container right there. And Fuglen, based out of Oslo, Norway. And this is part 20 of our 24-part KaffeBox Advent Calendar series, and the first time Fuglen has appeared on this channel. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's my first time trying this coffee roaster, as I was working on a full bag review of one of their coffees just in case the Advent calendar did not arrive in time. Now, Fuglen's been somewhat of a trendy coffee roaster this year, as I've noticed a lot of the major American multi-roasters carrying their coffees, as well as a lot of the European subscription services have been offering their coffees as well. So for that reason, they're a coffee roaster that has definitely been on my radar. And again, the way that this works, the notes and tasting are made with the V60. This cup right here is made with the Chemex, and I was able to find a brew guide for Fuglen, which translated to a 16.67 to 1 water to coffee ratio, brewed at 96 degrees Celsius, about 205 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, in terms of roast profile for this coffee, this one has definitely been the most developed of the coffees we've had in the Advent calendar up to this point. And that's something I noticed with the full bag review I was working on as well. Their coffees come out quite developed, and I think a lot of people would closely align this more with a medium than even a light medium, as this coffee was definitely pushing the spectrum a bit. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee. First impression, and the first thing I was looking for based off the honey processing was to see what level of clarity we were going to get from this coffee, as there was a slight bit of fermentiness in the aroma of the beans as well as the brew itself. And to my surprise, the cup did come out a little bit more clean than I was expecting, as there was still a little bit of fermentiness in the cup, but not to the extent I believed it would be. Flavor profile does immediately skew on the fresh fruit side of things, as there's this wonderfully pleasant peachy finish within the coffee. And I think a lot of people know at this point I really love peachiness in coffee, so that was a nice little start to it. However, the flavor profile was somewhat marred by this sort of earthiness and roastiness that was within the cup. And that's something I was kind of alluding to, was just how much development there was in this coffee, as the roasty aspects really seemed to dilute some of the more wonderful fresh fruit attributes in the coffee. It does have berry, and what's really nice about the berry component in it is that it does come out a lot more of the fresh than the jammy strawberry. So that's another really positive thing, and two really enjoyable things about this coffee was the fruit components in them. When you can get the wonderfully clean strawberries and wonderfully clean peach components from a coffee, especially in something like a honey processed coffee, then you are onto something really positive. However, it wasn't so much the fermentiness or the lack of clarity that was really kind of skewing this coffee. It was a lot more of the roastiness that was kind of diluting that flavor profile. Additional components I was able to pick up was a bright citric component, as well as a strong herbality that was present in the finish as well, though for me the peachiness was the most dominant attribute in the finish. One other thing I should highlight is that through the Chemex I am able to get a lot more of the tea-like components, as the coffee does feel slightly more light-bodied, and I think that it does focus a lot more of the herbal aspects, aligning it closer to a tea than just a generic herbality. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we were getting. All right, and we have 4 level 4, so let's go through those real quick. We'll start with the finish, level 4, and it's a wonderfully peachy finish. I have to say that's the best part of this coffee. The fact that I'm able to get such clean peach from this coffee, that's a really nice positive selling point to me on this one. So really like the finish in this coffee, level 4, definitely. Sweetness, level 4. Yes, it's a honey processed Ethiopian coffee, and it does have a fair bit of vibrancy, and it does help that the vibrancy is in terms of sweeter fruits. So that's another really positive aspect of this coffee. And then the other two sides of that, the berry fruit being at that level 4 mark. Yes, very clean strawberries as opposed to jammy strawberries. We're still continuing to discuss really positive things about this coffee. And then the stone fruit, which for me at times was the most dominant aspect of this coffee, and that's always going to be a wonderful selling point to me. So stone fruit, level 4, yes, definitely a fair bit of peachiness in the cup. Now the things that made this coffee a little tricky, we will go through the level 3s. The savoriness, level 3. Yeah, the herbality was just kind of interesting in this coffee. It was a lot more of it than I think I was expecting. Body level 3, definitely more so through the V60 than through the Chemex, a lot more of the tea-like attributes through the Chemex, but had a little bit more body than I think I was expecting, probably the lower side of level 3 though, to be honest. Cleanliness, level 3. Now, when I first started drinking this coffee, I wanted to put it at the level 4 because it is honestly on the higher side of level 3. Not as much fermentiness as you might expect, but I think what really kind of sold me on this was the fact that I was getting a fair bit of roastiness to it, and I think that did kind of contrast the overall clarity of the cup. So while there isn't maybe as much fermentiness as you might expect, it is marred by some other factors in this coffee. Acidity, level 3. This one I actually started out as a level 2, so this coffee seemed to go up a little higher. It's still on the lower side of level 3. As it did cool down, there was a little bit more acidity coming through the cup, but this one definitely didn't have the level of acidity that maybe I was expecting, but I think I had a little bit of familiarity with Fuglen to know that their coffees aren't necessarily as acidic as a lot of the other roasters in this advent calendar. Florality and the spice level 3, I'm going to kind of lump those two together because I'd mentioned this kind of interesting herbal kind of earthiness that's within the coffee. And it didn't come out any more defined until I actually ran it through the Chemex, but I think both of those kind of reached that level 3 mark as I could feel a fair bit of both of them within this cup. Citrus fruit, level 3. Yes, and it was kind of a third component within the coffee itself, as I could feel a little bit of lemon, and it did kind of contrast the really wonderful peach and strawberry aspect to it, but not obviously to the same extent as the other two fruits. Those were by far the most dominant fruits for me. And then the last thing that's kind of important, that's going to be the smokiness at that level 3. Yes, this coffee felt, again, a little bit more roasty than I think I was probably expecting. Given the way every single other coffee has been in the advent calendar, I kind of knew Fuglen was very different from the rest of them, but I think it really was demonstrated drinking this coffee after having 19 other coffees that felt significantly lighter than this one. So yeah, smokiness at that level 3. And I would say that this tasting wheel is pretty similar to what I experienced with the Chemex, just maybe a slight adjustment here or there. But yeah, that's kind of what I got from this coffee. All right, so my overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. There's a lot of good, and there are some things that I don't like, and I've been highlighting both of those throughout this review. I really liked the vibrant fruits in this coffee, and I feel like maybe if you had taken away some of the more roasty aspects, some of the more earthy aspects of this coffee, then this would have been one of my favorites in the entire advent calendar. I just don't really drink a whole lot of coffees these days that have this sort of profile to them, that are kind of marring the wonderfully clean fruits that don't seem to have the same sort of clarity or the florality that I'm really looking for in a coffee. That being said, they did a really good job with the sweetness. They did a really good job with the fruit. So it's kind of hard to take away from this coffee, especially given that it was in the stone fruit manner. I just can't help but think how this coffee might have come out if it was done a little lighter, what else I might have been able to experience, and how this coffee might have felt as a whole without the slightly more roasty aspects of this coffee. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to. I feel like if you do like your more developed coffees, I kind of have been hinting at that for quite a while you are looking for a lot of the natural Ethiopian characteristics in a more clean sense, this one did all of those things in a great way. It has great clarity for what it is. It does have great sweetness for what it is, and it does a really good job of bringing out the fruit components within this coffee as well. And there are some people that maybe look for a little less acidity, and that's where this one kind of fits into that, because while it is a little bit more developed, you can always give credit to a coffee roaster that is able to highlight the flavor profiles within the coffee in the way that Fuglen did with this one. I think for the most part, though, I'll leave this review at that. If you've by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee, we'd love to know your thoughts and impressions of it as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Sheka honey processed Ethiopia from Fuglen Coffee Roasters. Thank you for watching.